Hello and welcome to Emergence, Leading from the Field. My name is Artemis Evangelidi and I am your host. This podcast shines a light on courageous leaders from around the world, leaders who are shaping the future in bold and inspiring ways. Moving beyond the boardroom, we feature authentic conversations with guests, the change makers, the visionaries, and the innovators who are leading from experience, from purpose and heart, from the field where transformation takes place. These are conversations with people who are listening deeply, acting boldly, and are doing their part to shape a more conscious and connected world. Our conversations will offer a rare glimpse into how our guests have overcome challenges while spearheading innovations that have enabled them to lead from the front lines. Be inspired as our guests share their stories and their journeys. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome Steph Ellen. Steph is a trauma-informed performance coach, equine veterinarian, and yoga teacher who blends science and spirituality to help highly sensitive high achievers lead with clarity, resilience, and authenticity. With a diverse background that spans from the surgical suite to the yoga mat, the transformational coaching spaces, Steph brings a uniquely grounded perspective to conscious leadership. Rooted in nervous system regulation, subconscious reprogramming, and mindful productivity, her work supports visionary leaders in moving from survival mode to sustainable success, without burning out or betraying themselves. Whether she's guiding a business owner through shadow work or supporting a fellow vet navigating perfectionism and self-doubt, Steph's approach is deeply intuitive, radically compassionate, and backed by evidence-based tools. Through her signature blend of neuroscience, holistic psychology, and somatic practices, Steph helps her clients cultivate inner safety so they can create expansive impact in their careers, communities, and lives. Steph, welcome. It is so lovely to have you here with us.
It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited for our conversation.
So I think to get us started, your background is so incredibly diverse. So from being a vet through to yoga teaching, now transformational coaching. Walk us through your journey. How has each path shaped the leader that you are today?
It's very interesting that it is now so diverse because my journey really started off very single pointed focused. It was all about achieving. I had a very linear goal, I had some clear steps, and all through school, I wanted to be a vet. And wanting to be a vet is one of those like childhood dreams that a lot of people grow out of. You know, you ask a lot of 5-year-olds, they're like, yeah, I want to be a vet. And then the ones that do it, it really does attract a very like specific kind of person, like a very high achieving, very compassionate, and dare I say, deeply sensitive, although that would not have been a word that I would have resonated with initially. And the way that it shaped who I am is I really started ticking off all those boxes, and I'm sure many people can relate to this. You know, you start following that path that seems so clear, and yet each goal, I was like, is this it? Whether I said it out loud or just had this like pit in my stomach of, oh, okay, I actually don't feel happy. Like, I do not feel content. Like, this is supposed to make me feel a certain way, and it's not. And I realized in my career that the way that I was speaking to myself, the way I saw my colleagues speak to themselves, the way that the ecosystem was functioning just felt so like I felt so disconnected from it. And
Mm.
it was got to the point where achieving was not enough anymore. And that is what led me to start to explore different avenues. And I would love to say I came to the conclusion completely on my own, but often we get a nudge somewhere from the universe. And for me, the big moment was actually getting kicked in the face by a horse at work.
Right.
Um, and I'd already started to delve down the path of spirituality, looking at the nervous system, but that was very much a wake up call of, okay,
Mm.
we need to do things a little bit differently here. And that it gave me that like shock to the system, which you often need when you're in autopilot, when you're doing things a certain way. I would love it to not be a kick in the face, but sometimes it happens like that. So
Yeah.
yes, I guess that's where we can sort of start with, is that's how I started. Started along that path.
It's amazing. It's we say sometimes the universe gives you a slap across the face to get you to move, and you actually literally had that experience. I guess that was the pivotal moment in your own journey that led you towards the coaching and the conscious leadership work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was it about this type of work that made you feel more satisfied, more in tune with your purpose?
It really felt like a coming home and a guiding people home to themselves as well. It felt it felt messy, I'm not going to lie, and it felt uncomfortable. And we often confuse like that discomfort with and resistance with meaning that something isn't right for you. But it still filled me with this excitement, this curiosity to learn more. Like the more that I learned about myself and the more that I saw others and guided others to delve into themselves with a sense of curious, compassionate self awareness, the more I realize that that's what we're all craving. Because I work with a lot of very self aware people. Like they are self aware, high achieving people, but often that self awareness has this lens of shame. Like it's a shameful
Mm,
self awareness. I've now identified something else that's wrong with me, in inverted commas, or
mm,
something that's broken that I need to fix. And the reason this work, like the nervous system work in particular, has been something that's been so phenomenal and life changing for me and my clients is it takes you back to like presence and mindful, compassionate self awareness rather than using personal development or psychology or any of these productivity tools as almost like another stick to beat yourself with. It's like, okay, well,
mm,
now I need to do this morning routine and now I need to journal on all of this shadow work and I need to do this. And the way that I see it is really taking, yes, we want to continue to grow, but it's not from a sense of lack. It's from a genuine sense of curiosity.
mm. I love that. It's almost as though when all of these um, practices and tools that are supposed to help you and guide you and support you, that you can kind of call on in times of need, when they make it to a to-do list, that's when it becomes dangerous, because then it's another thing that you have to do, another thing you have to tick off, when in fact it's a reframing about how you look at the world and allowing yourself to navigate all of these things through the lens of mindfulness and presence, but as an embodied practice rather than as a thing I need to do today and tick off my list. Um, so how do you help your clients navigate? They're high achievers, they're very sensitive. How do you reframe that sensitivity so that it becomes, I guess, a superpower, and help them kind of stay within um, their authentic center and not burn out?
Mm. So a lot of this involves de-shaming. So really peeling back the shame
Mm,
from like whether you have grown up being explicitly told or implicitly told that you're too much or too sensitive or not enough or all of those things at the same time, your nervous system does not forget that. And so often, these highly sensitive high achievers, they've created this persona, this mask around who they truly are, usually based on perfectionism. So high
mm,
standards, high attention to detail, comes very naturally. Also fawning and people pleasing. So pretzeling yourself into something that's more palatable. And so a lot of this is stripping back these protective mechanisms, because that's all they are. They're not a flaw. They're not something that's wrong with you. It's something that has been learnt, and something that has often been glorified in these high achieving careers as well. You've actually received praise and success for these coping patterns and coping mechanisms. So a lot of it is detangling these mechanisms and these behaviors from your true sense of self. And a lot of it involves slowing down, really slowing down, which feels very unsafe to a nervous system that is really just being fueled by doing more, achieving more. So there's this real sense of slowing down, this sense of compassionate inquiry, and starting to really ask the questions about, what is it that really truly lights you up? Like, what is it that excites you? What is it that even makes your blood boil a bit as well? Because a lot of sensitive people have this really strong sense of justice as well. And it's working out, like, how can we channel this energy into something that's making an impact, whether that's locally or globally? That's up to you. But the reason that so many sensitive high achievers get burnt out is because they're being pulled in so many directions and giving with such an intensity. But it's that cliche of, like, you cannot give from an empty cup. You cannot go beyond your capacity. So it's about getting clear, it's about being present, and it's also about expanding your capacity in a way that is actually supporting your nervous system, not just like fraying at the edges. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about you keep mentioning the nervous system and regulating the nervous system. Is this something that people have? I mean, it's sometimes people find it so difficult to get their heads around. How do I do this? This is just, I've always felt this way. I don't know any other way to feel. Is it something that you have found in your experience is a challenge for people to actually start to recognize that this is my nervous system out of whack? Or do they come to that realization as you guide them through? Do they come to that realization quite easily? What's your experience been? Because in different industries with, I do a lot of work with many industries, but particularly in the law, people don't recognize at all that there was, they haven't turned their minds to the fact that there's an issue when in fact they're operating at a critical or, hit the panic button kind of state, which is absolutely detrimental to their well-being. It's just interesting to hear from different industries how that plays out.
For sure. And I think I experience both ends of the spectrum. So I would say, like, the clients who come to me, who seek me out, they have a very strong intellectual understanding often of the nervous system, but it's not always particularly embodied. And so I'll just park that probably for a moment. Because there definitely there's a population of people who can analyze their responses, but haven't actually paused and embodied a lot of this work. And I definitely was in that trap for a long time because it felt very safe to analyze rather than to actually feel. And then, certainly in the veterinary profession, because I still practice a few days a week as a clinical vet, and we have a lot of students come through, and I'm so passionate about trying to weave this in early and weave this awareness in early, because it is so normalized. It is so normalized to be in a state of dysregulation. And I think it's important to, like, really define what that is so people can recognize it in themselves, because it's amazing that there's much more conversation about the nervous system in the sort of mainstream now. That's incredible. But there's often this perception that a regulated nervous system is calm all the time, and that is not true. It's not about, being still meditating, for however many hours a day necessarily. Like, a healthy nervous system is flexible and dynamic. It's responsive. It's meant to be activated when there's an appropriate stimulus. So a dysregulated nervous system is, like, I like to think of it as it's having like an inappropriate response to the current situation. So let's say that you're meant to be winding down for bed. You're meant to be relaxing. You're meant to be starting to down regulate, go into that rest and digest, that parasympathetic state. But instead, your mind is wired. You're tired, but wired. Your thoughts are racing. Your heart is beating fast. You might even be a little sweaty. You're frantically scanning for danger, metaphorically or physically. But then the converse is true. The opposite is also true. Maybe you're meant to be getting up and feeling motivated and focused and active in the morning. You want to sit down and do some deep work, but your mind is foggy. You can't get going. You need that third cup of coffee. And you can see how it's not about being calm or in one state, but it's like, okay, well, how can I mobilize my nervous system to actually have an appropriate response? Can I be motivated and active when it's needed and focused and do productive, good work? But can I also switch off when it's time to relax? Do I just get sick every time I go on holiday? Like, every time you take a break, your body's like, okay, now we can actually get sick. We've actually got space. So that would be how I'd recognize it, is notice, are you able to actually switch off when you want to? Are you able to be motivated for your gym workout? Be focused in your meetings? It's starting to look at those little moments throughout the day, and then again, not shaming yourself for it, because this is the first part. It's because getting stressed about being stressed is also not a good way to start either.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are the shifts that you notice when people start to recognize and become aware of where they are and what their nervous system is telling them?
Presence, like slowing down. It's actually taking little moments throughout the day. That's the best way to start, is to first notice without shifting, and try and choose a way to, if you're going to set an alarm or something, not an obnoxious alarm that's going to go off and trigger a response, but having little moments where you begin to check in. You feel your feet on the ground. You maybe even take a couple of deep breaths. And the difference that you notice is actually you notice more things. You become more sensitive. And when I say sensitivity and being sensitive, I mean presence and noticing and observing. I don't mean reactivity, because you actually allow yourself to respond. When you're sensitive and you're present, you can then respond. Reactivity is more like unregulated or dysregulated sensitivity. So the difference when you start to do this work is you actually end up more productive, because you might be doing less hours, but it's more focused work. It's more intentional. You can actually finish the day feeling satisfied and fulfilled. You'll still be tired. You probably worked hard. Like, people listening to this, high achievers, you want to perform at a certain level. You'll be tired, but you'll also be fulfilled, rather than constantly being like, okay, well, now I've got this to do tomorrow, and I didn't get this done. I need to do this. It's space. It creates presence, and people feel that. Like, the most powerful person in the world, in my opinion, is the most present. Like, it is the person who is where their feet are, seeing the bigger picture, but also being able to connect, having that relationship. You know when someone's checked out. You know when someone's not
Yeah.
listening to you. And
Yeah.
that is what we're craving more of as a society.
Absolutely. I have found, and I speak for myself just as much as I speak for other, people that I've worked with, or things that I've observed in my own experience, that when we're so wired to be doing and doing and doing and creating, and a lot of us are really driven by our purpose, and it informs our every moment of our existence, because there's so much that we can do, and it brings us joy. But the flip side to that is sometimes we don't know what to do with the not doing,
Mm.
and you have this time and you think, well, I could be doing something that brings me joy, but that actually you need to step into being, because that's where the magic happens, and that's the ability to just be present and give yourself space from the doing is often a challenge. And I think, in a previous conversation that you and I had, I was so intrigued by the incredible parallels between being a vet and being a lawyer. And it was something that really stayed with me. I think that is it's both. I think both industries in reflection are working with in really high stress environments. And what I'd love to kind of get your view on now is, how do you think that working with animals has helped and influenced the way that you work with people in this transformational space? Because there are so many parallels between being a vet and being a lawyer, for example, or being a vet and being a medical doctor, or being a vet and being,
Mm-hmm.
someone else in a high achieving kind of high stress environment. What are the parallels? What have the animals taught you in this space?
Oh, so much. And especially horses. So I work with
Mm,
horses, and they're very intuitive, very, they're very sensitive. And a lot of the people that also own them and work with them, they also have a bit of that sensitivity too, because they form such incredible bonds with their people. And something I always say to the students coming through is, it's also all about the people being a vet as well. Like, you'll never get near that
mm,
animal unless you can communicate with the person, and you can have that connection with them as well. And the conversation we were having about those parallels as well is like the emotional charge that comes with these roles too. It's not only do you have to have, your cognitive intellectual capacity is always being stretched, and you're using that incredible logical analytical mind, but there's has to be this deep connection and presence with the communication with the people involved as well, like the emotional intelligence that's required for these roles, as well as
mm,
just the logic. I think that's where it's such a, like, I want to say unique, but they're also related, but it is a challenge that's present across these careers, because the working with your nervous system when you're in these roles is so key, because that is where a lot of the emotional intelligence is going to come from, because you notice subtle shifts in energy. And it's the same with
mm,
horses
mm,
too.
mm,
It's like you notice that subtle change in body language, and you notice how things are being received, or when things maybe aren't being received in that way. Like, if you're in your head fully, you're cut off from that, and you've already lost people. They're not even listening to you. So working with horses especially has been this incredible reminder constantly, because you can't lie to them, like, they can feel your energy as soon as you're there. And if you're somewhere else, you're not getting away with that with a horse.
mm,
Like, they
mm,
will not allow that. And especially when I'm meeting people as well in their most vulnerable state. Grief is one of the most, powerful emotions and powerful parts of the human experience.
Yeah.
And even that connection between animals and their people. Like, euthanasia is actually one of my most rewarding parts of my role, because I'm holding the space for such an incredible transition, and doing it well and with presence is something I really pride myself on. And it's taught me so much about slowing down, about being present, about connection, and above all, having, being able to hold that space and being
Mm.
able to hold the energy without being consumed by it. And that's what this work does, is it gives you the tools to be that strong, sensitive but strong, sensitive but not
Mm.
fragile. And so it's taught me so much about presence.
It's amazing. I'd love to circle back to something you said right at the beginning. You were saying how, you were achieving all your milestones, you were kicking all these goals, and yet you weren't happy. You knew that something was missing. You felt that there was something that just wasn't there, that you needed to reach out and grab. What does happiness mean to you today? How do you define that, and how do you have you mastered it?
I wouldn't say I've mastered it, or that I particularly want to master it, to be honest, because it feels like a process, and it
Mm.
feels like something that I'm redefining all the time. And that's part of the magic. It's this, and it always comes back to curiosity for me. That's one of my main values. And for me, a happy life is a curious life. It's following those nudges and feeling like, I gave it a go. And the
Mm.
perfectionist part of me, that terrifies her for sure. Because having a go is never good enough for that part. And happiness for me is just allowing that part to take a back seat, and then to explore, because it's it's really the freedom to express all these different parts of myself, and to not feel like I have to fit into one box, one professional box, or one, this is me as a vet, and this is me as a yoga teacher, and this is me as a coach, because they actually all, they're all authentic expressions of me. And
Yeah.
so allowing myself to express these different parts while still knowing that I'm still me, and I'm still all parts of me at all times, like, that is happiness for me.
Yeah, I love that. It's often a challenge people face, isn't it? When they say, "Well, but I've got all these different parts of me, and I'm not quite sure how they integrate." Like I'm a lawyer, and I'm also a yoga teacher. Or I'm also an author. Or I write poetry, or I write music, or I play, in a band. Like, how do I bring all that together? And he said, well, you don't have to bring it all together. It already is all together because it's you.
Mm-hmm.
You can be whatever you want to be. You can express yourself in whichever way makes you feel that you are living an authentic life. Um, and that's, I think the most important part of showing up and leading from where you stand is actually bringing all of yourself to the arena and into the field to do that. Um, and actually, that is a great segue into something I'd love to get your insights on. From, I mean, you embody the principles of conscious leadership in what you do and in the work that you do. What does a conscious leader look like to you? What are the most important elements in conscious leadership?
Feel we're coming back to the theme again and again, but for me, it is embodied presence. it's
Mm.
it's actually not only having the ability but the capacity to listen, and to see,
Mm.
see that wider, bigger picture, but also those moving parts. And I think that links so beautifully with what you just said as well, about those different expressions authenticity. It's like when your conscious leadership is being able to see those moving parts and see that connection without and see how it works as a system as well, rather than just like it's seeing the minute and the bigger at the same time. And it's also, for me, a big one as a recovering perfectionist. It's creating an environment where people can experiment, where people have the freedom to get things wrong, and they have the freedom to get feedback, and like fostering that environment where people can innovate. And you have to first lead yourself. That's the thing. You have to first lead yourself before you can lead anyone else. And that comes, like, I do not believe that sensitivity is a barrier to this at all. Like, there's such it's sometimes that word and that the ideas that we create around sensitivity and emotions, like, they think that has to be separate from leadership or managing. And I just truly believe that the best leaders are the ones connected to that sensitivity, and they have the grounded presence to then respond rather than react. So for me, the big ones would be presence, sensitivity, and perspective.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. I think presence is the gift of being able to stand true to yourself, aligned with your values, and be able to see what's coming and what's needed, and to be able to hold space for that. I was reading a report the other day from Gallup that was kind of ringing alarm bells, because the disengagement numbers are creeping up again. And that's a scary place to be, when people are feeling that they are completely disengaged in their workplaces, not only for the workplace and the, billions of dollars in lost earnings and as a result of decreased productivity, but more importantly for the individual who is showing up each day and not feeling that they are making a difference, not feeling that they are showing up in their best capacity or being their best selves. What are one of the ways that you like to tackle, if someone comes to you and says, look, I've been doing this work and I love what I do, but I just don't feel like my heart and soul is in it anymore. I just don't feel like I can contribute in that way. What are some of the ways that you would deal with that? Disengagement is a scary place. It leads into other areas in our kind of well-being continuum that we don't really want to be stepping into. Eventually, that's where you find yourself.
For sure. It's a very scary place to be, and it's that slippery slope to like apathy and just being completely checked out and disconnected. And that is, that's a very scary place to be, like you say, individually and collectively. And so it comes back to what we were saying before about like the sort of stripping back of the productivity and the labels that you're putting on yourself as like who you are and based on your productivity, and coming back to those little moments that bring you joy. I like to call them, like, they're referred to as glimmers as well. So finding those little moments, and they may seem inconsequential initially, but we have to like follow those little glimmers and use them as like breadcrumbs. And you can also use triggers in the same way, in the sense of, for what you don't want, what is it that you don't want, and why is it? Like, can we just start to peel back the layers and explore and really come back to, the why behind why you're starting to check out. But that being said, I do think there's a huge part for like the nervous system to play in this as well, because it could be that you are just starting to get into what's known as like a freeze or a shutdown response. Like disengagement, it can be from like burnout is like a spectrum. Like I know that's a word that's used, it's thrown around a lot, but when you are overwhelmed consistently, one of the things the nervous system will often do if you've been in fight and flight for so long is it will actually take you into this like shutdown response where you start to feel numb and disconnected. And so physically, there's a lot we can do in terms of trying to actually like upregulate yourself, like find a way to feel a little bit more energized, going back to the basics as well of looking after yourself, because it's very hard to do this like deep inner work if your body is completely shut down. So a lot of this does involve combining both that's the values-based work and the exploring those different parts of yourself, but then also coming back to the body, getting more present in your body, in the sensations that come up when we're talking about this, because you can't do them in isolation. There has to be the mind and the body.
Yeah. So what are some of the practices that you use to help you kind of stay connected to yourself and your authenticity and your purpose?
So for me, nature is the biggest thing for me. Like I'm lucky enough that in my role as a horse vet, of course, I drive around, the beautiful countryside. Like if I can, I'll have a moment, eating my lunch. It's usually in the car, but I'll try and pick a spot, with some beautiful trees, and just give myself a few moments. Getting out, moving my body is for me 100% essential. Like I really feel the difference if there's a few days. So it's a lot of this is basic, a lot of this is simple, but often we discount it because it doesn't feel enough. It feels like it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
So like meditation, breath work, those little moments, and letting go of the idea that it has to be a big hour-long practice. Can I just do a 5-minute yoga flow in between?
Right.
Can I just stretch? Can I just drink my coffee outside on the balcony? Like, can I just have little moments? And so those are the ones like throughout the day, but then I always make sure that I've got something that really excites me that I'm looking forward to. So I have daily non-negotiables, but I also have like monthly or even quarterly non-negotiables, and that means like non-negotiables like joy. Live music. Live music for me brings me so much joy. Dancing with a group of people, connecting. It's like it feels like this is the whole point. Or camping in nature. Like I have something to look forward to every little section of time. So and like something that isn't productive, that is just joy. So those are my daily non-negotiables, but longer term ones too.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I think simple things, like you said, right? Being in nature, going for a walk without listening to anything, just experiencing, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, the sensations of the body. And music is such I think people forget how powerful music can be and is in a grounding, but also a healing process, because it's so easy. And I love how you said that. We're looking for, it has to be this hour-long thing, or I have to go and do this. And, again, I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier, that if you put it on your to-do list, you've missed the point, right? Like it shouldn't be on any lists. It should just be an experience that you weave into your day. I love that. We are living in some quite volatile and uncertain times, and we have been for a very, very long time. That's not anything new. And I think, the term VUCA was coined back in the 80s. So it's been a long run of being in a volatile and uncertain environment. But does uncertainty excite you, or does it scare you?
I think it can be both, because often physiologically being nervous and excited are actually very similar. Like that's the thing. It's just it's a perspective a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, our nervous system craves familiarity, and it will, like, on autopilot, it will revert back to what's known. So you will repeat patterns, even if they aren't good for you, quote unquote, because your nervous system doesn't care about you being happy. It cares about your survival. And if you've survived something before, therefore it is known, therefore it is safe. So I think understanding that is very freeing, of like, okay, well, it's natural that I'm resisting change and that it feels scary, because that is what is known. But I do think we are, like, there is exciting things happening. Like, there's a lot of people having these conversations now that were not having these conversations. You know, in our industries, like law and vet, people were not talking about this. Or if they were, it was very hush hush. You know, it was very hush hush in like corners of rooms, being like, "Have you heard about this thing, this yoga, whereas now people are out and about talking about these things. So I think that's very exciting. And going back, you know, to the beginning, the kick in the face, like sometimes we need a kick in the face to actually have that pattern interrupt, and this, like, okay, what we're doing is not working. So how can we reorganize this? How can we actually find, like, it's a natural cycle. You know, there's always going to be that feminine chaos, and then the more masculine structure, and there's going to be this dance between the two. That's how anything happens. And the more we resist it, the more you get out of presence, and the more you actually can't then respond to what's in front of you.
Oh, I love that. I love that dance. I love the way that you so beautifully put that. As we're getting to the end of our conversation, and I know that, you know, we could probably talk for another 3 hours. There's so many things that I'd love to get your insights on. But what's emerging for you right now? What's calling you forward in your stage of your life and career and your beingness?
More connection, more conversations like this, and getting into spaces where these conversations aren't being had as freely yet. I love to challenge perspectives, and to think of a door, and just think of like some light coming through, and just cracking the door and a bit of light shining through, and just opening the possibility for a different way. Like, it's not about forcing or making anyone to do anything that feels, you know, that doesn't feel natural or doesn't feel in alignment for them, but just opening the possibility of a different way of living, and really allowing that multi-passionate, authentic expression into different areas of life. So connecting and following those nudges is what's emerging for me. And I love the name of this podcast. I just love, it feels so like organic, and I really resonate with it. It feels beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I guess it's what Leonard Cohen had said, right? The crack is how the light gets in. So that's
exactly.
That's the beauty of that. So connection. How can people connect with you, Steph? I mean, I'll share your details, but what's the best way?
Well, currently, I actually mainly hang out on social media, on Instagram. So my handle is @findingflowstate, which I'm sure will be in the show notes. I do have a podcast with the same name, mainly working one-on-one at the moment. I do have a few programs now and again. One at the moment called Embodied Authority, which is actually about overcoming imposter syndrome through the body. So it's about
I love that.
I love just, again, challenging those perspectives, but also on LinkedIn I've just started to post on there recently, so the links will be there. But please reach out if you enjoyed this episode. I love to see where it's landing and hear any feedback or questions.
Absolutely. And I invite all of our high achievers who are listening, myself included, to reach out and speak to Steph, because the work that she's doing is quite groundbreaking, and it's a beautiful mix and blend of, spirituality and neuroscience and experience and embodiment, which makes all the difference. So Steph, thank you so much for joining me today and for joining us and our listeners and sharing your beautiful story and your amazing insights, and for being so raw and authentic. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.